Hello everybody, this is Gregory with 5 Minute Catholic Apologetics and Living, where 5 minutes of your time may get you to the divine. Today we're going to talk about how the internet is destroying Catholicism. Now before we begin, let's start with a prayer. Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritui Sancti. Amen. Gloria Patri et Filii et Spiritui Sancto, sic ut era in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. So what do I mean by this? Let's juxtapose 2023 America with 1723. I wouldn't say America because it wasn't a very, very small colonial presence here. There were no Catholics here. Even, it's interesting. I need to do an episode on the colony of Maryland, which was the first Catholic colony, and eventually how the Protestants from neighboring states overran it, where Catholicism became a minority there until the Irish started coming in the 1840s. But you think of like 1730 Italy, 1423 Spain. What was our exposure to the papacy? What was our exposure to the Curia and the Magisterium? Very little. It's kind of like the same thing they said, like in 1920, a typical American's interaction with the government, biggest interaction was the post office. And it's nothing like it is today, of course, thanks to Big Brother surveillance. But you think about our exposure to the papacy and what was going on. The shenanigans that were going on in Rome or wherever, it's minimal to none. Like, we didn't know what was going on. If you look at 1423 Aragon, Spain, what did we know that was going on in Rome? Nothing. What we knew was our parish priest, and maybe if you were a higher level aristocracy during the time, you might know the bishop. And that's it. You just knew your parish priest and the bishop. There's no extraordinary ministers. There's no what they call pastoral associates. Nothing like that. That's all you knew. That was your exposure to the church. And of course, the church architecture, and depending on what decade and what century, you might have printed literature you're reading from, and all these things like hymnals and prayer books and so forth. And I think nowadays it's the opposite because of the internet, and because of kind of this, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a conspiracy world, but this clickbaity yellow journalism that we have. And yellow journalism goes back to like Joseph Pulitzer, the Spanish-American War, how they would publish incendiary stuff to get people all riled up so they would legitimize going to war, like in the Spanish-American War. And you saw this definitely in World War I as well. And so in the Catholic world, you see a lot of this kind of incendiary, clickbaity, what I call the doomsday apocalyptic stuff, like his Roman apostasy. Francis did this, the Curia did this, if Vigano responds by doing this. This is so much out there. And so you are exposed to what is going on in Rome and by our Curia a lot more. I mean, it's a zillion, infinitely times more than in 1723 Sicily. Just it's a lot. And the problem with this is, I think it doesn't help us because we talked about this in past episodes. What's going on in Rome doesn't really have a bearing on your salvation at all. And this is something that the rad trads don't get, right? The rad trads get so focused on what's going on in Rome, the persecution of the TLM. Francis did this, Francis said this on an airplane, this person did this, the St. Gallen Mafia, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I think it's like Father Ripperger over at Sensus Fidelium said, it's a sin of singularity, right? It's kind of the Neo from the Matrix complex. There's something going on in this person's life where it's like, I feel like I need to have that special. I'm the special one who knows the truth, and everyone around me doesn't know the truth, and they can't see the truth. I see the truth. It's this sin of pride that really drives me crazy in the rad trad community. And so part of that, a lot of that is fueled by the fact that we have the internet, right? And so even if you look at something like in 1982, what did we really know what was going on the internet? You might have had some books, maybe some publications that would come out like a month later. We certainly didn't have the internet. I don't even think EWTN, maybe EWTN came out around that time, but you didn't have anything even 40 years ago. And now we have too much stuff. And instead of focusing on your Lectio Divina, instead of focusing on daily mass and doing works of mercy and praying and all these things, there's so many well-intentioned Catholics who get sucked down the rabbit hole of the internet onto Reddit or Facebook, and it's all about it's just fixating on something that's not important. We know what we need to do to work on ourselves. What's going on in Rome doesn't matter. Now, you'll say it matters. It doesn't matter. And so the internet has done a great disservice to a lot of Catholics. I mean, we're not even talking about the sex abuse scandals and other things like that. People have the opportunity to look these things up and they're like, I'm going to leave the church because of that. And we have several episodes refuting why you shouldn't leave the church because of the sex abuse scandal. But it's kind of like in the same world. Like, it was almost better in the olden days when we weren't exposed to these things. You could say things about secular leadership. In 1423, we didn't know how corrupt the king was. Who cares if he was corrupt? I mean, that's the thing. It's like we have this idea that the church is in its worst state it's ever been in 2,000 years of its history. And part of this is born out of just Americans being woefully ignorant of history, and then combined with pretty ignorant on church history, and not knowing that the church has gone through horrific times before with exceedingly scandalous clergy and leadership. We just didn't know about it. Like, 9th century wasn't a good time. 11th century wasn't a good time. 16th century Renaissance popes weren't that great. A lot of bad things going on there. 18th century, we didn't have any good popes. We went 200 years without having a saint pope. But we didn't know. We didn't know any better. It was like invincible ignorance, like Aquinas talks about. We just didn't know any better. And it didn't hurt us. So it's better not to know. Detach from Catholic news, Catholic scandals, because it distracts you from what you should be doing, which is focusing on your spirituality, your charity toward yourself, your family members, and to others. And just stay away from this stuff, guys. Stay away. Guys, post in the comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'd love to hear from you. Hit the notification, subscribe button. Until next time, take care. God bless.